Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for our weekly Work from Home Wednesday afternoon web sessions. This week, we're going to be talking about social selling and how we can leverage Dynamics 365 to do that. And in particular, more focused on the social orchestration side of things. And we are pleased to have a guest with us, Brad from Social HP. So, Brad Dickinson, thanks for joining us and look forward to some stimulating conversation here.
Thanks for having me.
Everyone is seeing my slides move along here, and we'll just get right into to what we're looking to talk about. As far as the agenda is concerned this aft, I guess just so we all somewhat understand what the idea of social selling is. I think it's one of those terms that's thrown around very frequently, but does anybody really understand what it is? Is the definition perhaps maybe changed over time? Do people use it in different fashions and expect it to be somewhat of the same thing? So looking at that first, moving on, just digging into where your brand ties into your whole overall strategy, how that can be leveraged from a social point of view. And really, at the end of the day, it's not just necessarily to be out there and be present on some of these channels, but I think it's ultimately important to be driving revenue and generating some sales cycle. So I think we'll then kind of get into some tips and tricks on things that we're seeing work, and we'll hand it over to Social Horsepower just because I think a few people may have some of those questions around what exactly it is, and then how does that actually integrate with the rest of the platform here where you may already be using Microsoft Dynamics. So Brad, why don't you maybe give us a quick little intro and just a bit of a brief background on yourself, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me and welcome everybody. I'm excited to show you a little bit about Social HP. I've been in the social marketing and communications from the technology perspective for a number of years, and have always enjoyed understanding organizations' marketing communications issues and frankly trying to help them by way of leveraging technology, making it easier, faster, more simple, and more effective. And that's what we try to do here at Social HP, is give you the tools and the technology to set up and execute really effective social marketing campaigns. And of course, focusing on sales is a really important aspect of social marketing for a lot of organizations. When it comes to any effective marketing campaign, particularly in sales, executing and distributing the content in line with sales promotions and marketing campaigns, I think the key is relevance, right? You want to be able to hit the right people with the right content at the right time. And, that's our goal, is to equip our customers with the ability to do that without spending a whole lot of time and energy.
Yeah, well said. And I think just for on the visual here, I think some ideas just to put out there for some consideration. But what are some of those traditional methods? And to some extent, I'm a firm believer in what's old is new again, and things will always tend to come around. And being a bit of a raconteur in that sense of some old school tactics, but what do we see here in terms of traditional selling that's just simply not working anymore? And how do we leverage social selling and maybe not necessarily social selling, but selling in a more digital first fashion? And certainly now, as people are working from home, at least maybe not permanently, but in a more frequent level, how do we evolve and grow beyond that? And what role does social selling play within all of this? So I don't know, looking at this little graphic, for me, a couple things. On the left-hand side, I kind of see Alec Baldwin's face in Glengarry Glen Ross, if anybody's watched that movie, in terms of the boiler room. It's not the leads that are, it's the people on the other end of the phone, and they're smashing their teeth cold calling. Now, I think there's always a place for getting on the phone and having some good dialogue with people. But is that the only mechanism? And what does the overall process look like? What's the overall strategy? So I think a whole lot less reliance on some of these traditional methods here. And the thing that pops out for me on the right-hand side is leveraging networks, whether that's social networks or other professional networks, or having a more network-focused thought process to this. will serve you well in whatever it is you're trying to do. If that's selling or just building your brand, or in a nonprofit capacity, getting some advocacy for your message and your cause out there. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts. Brad, what do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. I think it comes down to relationships and education. And I think you can kind of take a step back from the sales process now. And one of the things that you'll start to see is that the sales process starts a little bit earlier now than it used to. It used to start with a phone call, right? A cold touch. It used to start when you decided to go and engage a company and try to sell to that company. And then the journey that unfolded by way of sending a person to the offices and breaking bread, or cold calling, or emailing those companies, you kind of decided to start a sales process. Now you need to float really important, really relevant, industry focused, education focused content kind of out into the universe, so to speak, to engage with people and allow them to really kind of warm up to the idea of what you're doing, and how you're potentially kind of shifting the dynamic within the industry. And that happens before, months before, potentially years before you actually engage a customer or a company and have a sales conversation. So you want to make sure that you're leveraging, business partnerships, network relationships, and getting that type of content that is created and or leveraged by your organization out in front of those audiences as early as possible, so that when the time is right to potentially execute in some of those traditional tactics, which, as you said, what's old is new all over again, you're not going to bypass the process of calling people, doing email campaigns, and doing a traditional selling strategy at some point. But the fact is that you're going to set the table for that to be quicker, more effective, and just an easier and more enjoyable process, frankly, with the relevant content being distributed from social networking.
More educated, right? People are searching for information themselves, and I think this is maybe thematic, something that will come out as we go through this. But just being on social, when I think a lot of people think around, well, what is being on social, or what's social selling? It's just being present on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. Well, that's not really, frankly, it's not really good enough. Are you providing some value in terms of educational material? And I think there's a big emphasis, or at least what we're trying to do ourselves even, is really beef up our blog content, and then let that be the engine that's really going to drive our social strategy. So
yeah, absolutely. It's something that I like that you say that, because something that we'll take a look at in our platform is the ability to make sure that not only do you have a presence online on social platforms, but that presence is done in a strategic fashion. So tuck that in your back pocket. We'll definitely hit on that. But it's very, very important to not just be there, but to be there in a cohesive and a strategic way.
Yeah, and I think just the buyer's mind today more than ever, they know the information is out there, and they want people to help them through their process, as opposed to be, I don't want to say grab by the tie and choke him till he buys type of old school mentality, where they're going to go through your process. It's really, how do you align with the buying process for people, and a big piece of that is education. So I think here's just a couple data points to throw out there for people. I don't know if there's anything we want to dig out here or call out. Brad, anything come to mind?
Yeah,
on
nice.
These 5 stats?
Yeah, I love these. I think from my experience in the marketplace, this is absolutely accurate. One thing that I've seen just in my own analysis of our go-to-market strategy is consumers are much further down the sales process when they decide to have a first conversation than they used to be. So the point is, buyers are out there and they're making decisions. They're engaging with your content. They're considering in their own minds what it's going to be like to do business with you, to use your products. And they're making those decisions without your immediate input as far as phone calls and emails. They're doing that by stitching together their perceived existence of your organization and how well your employees look as far as their stature in the industry. Are they thought leaders? Are they educated on this industry? Are they educated on your products? And what does that mean as far as their experience in dealing with your business? And so I think it's important to understand that people are making a lot of decisions based on the content that's out there, and that they're going very, very deep into their decision making before they actually engage with you one-on-one.
Well said. And I'll drill into that second stat there. The 54% of people are now involved in the average B2B buying decision. So I think that just speaks to the level of information people are grabbing about you, your company, your services, your products, whatever that might be. And they're taking it home and, so to speak, within their four walls of their organization. And there's a lot of decision making by consensus. So I think the more information you can put out there to people so that they can educate, as you say, on their own, I think there's a whole lot more decision making by consensus that goes on than perhaps maybe we realize, or maybe we're accustomed to based on past procedures.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that last data point about value and insight. One of the things that's really important about a successful social marketing strategy is to ensure that you are adding value, and a value in terms of your own company and your own product here and there. But I think insight and value in terms of your leadership and your thought leadership in an industry, from that back to that education point, is potentially more moves the needle for you as a seller more than value that's specific to your company and to a product. To put out information that educates these buyers on the industry and where the gaps are and where the pains are that your product can solve. That's what you want to educate. That's what you want to build awareness of, because then they're coming to their own decision of, hey, I need something to fill this gap, to solve this pain. And your product is the right answer to that, versus trying to attach a value to your product specifically.
Yeah, totally. And I don't know, I'm a subscriber to the challenger mindset. How do you challenge under constructive tension to change and innovate? I think we're seeing a lot of that happen right now, just in the market, with people being forced under pressure. It's creating some innovation. So shifting gears here a little bit, tips to build out a successful strategy. I think key. Who are you working with? Who are your targets, and who are the people you're working with that you do business with, that know, like, and trust you, and how do you just get to know them and create some communication in a bi-directional fashion that deepens the relationship? Thoughts on any of this stuff here that you see, Brad?
Yeah, definitely. I think the point number one there that you kind of referenced is really, really important. The more and more we deal with our customers and we help them sell, and we start to see what works as far as their content distribution strategy, their feedback loop, the analytics that they're interested in, and the data that they're able to gather through the use of the system. What most organizations are trying to do is to decrease friction and increase efficiency to save time, right? Time is the new currency. And if you can do things effectively in less time, ultimately you're gonna move to more and more success. And one of the ways that you can really cut down on wasted time and energy as a sales organization is to understand your ideal customer profile, right? It's really easy to go out to market and try to sell to everybody that's out there with a name and an email address and a bank account, right? But to understand really where and how your product fits and the value that your product provides to an organization, and then understand what those companies look like. What is the size of those organizations? In what capacity do they work? What industry are they in? Even things like what tech stack they have, and those types of things, right? All that stuff is really, really important information, because it tells you who has an appetite for what you're offering. And if you know that there's a certain subset of the market that has a higher appetite, then you can invest your resources, your time, your energy into what's ultimately going to be a faster, more effective sale, versus throwing stuff against the wall and see what sticks.
Or is the old adage, goes, you can't be all things to all people.
Exactly.
Maybe you
Exactly.
should try.
Yeah.
And
But it's
bottom point there underneath, the metrics and measuring, right?
right.
Tighter measurements, obviously not being bogged down and over analyzing things to some extent, but certainly I'll say having some ongoing standing metrics and understanding what your trajectory is and where and when and how to properly calibrate and move in the right direction and make the right changes.
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely. I'll jump in on the give your team some guidance as well. I think that's a kind of an overlooked point in a lot of marketing campaigns. It's really, really, really difficult to build a brand. And Coca-Cola and Apple and everybody who has a brand that is recognized around the world will tell you it's one of the most difficult things that you can do, and it's one of the most valuable things that you can maintain. Um, but a small hiccup can massively deteriorate the trust and the vision of a brand. And so you really want to make sure that as you are promoting social selling, social marketing, and content distribution, that you're going to do that in line with your brand and in line with your voice.
well said. Yep. For me here, I think the one item that jumps out on this in terms of social engagement is really focusing, or at least wrapping your head around the fact that social is a two-way street, and creating some back and forth dialogue and putting the right technology in place behind the scenes to capture customer service requests, feedback, anything from a marketing automation side where you can start to engage with people where they're hanging out digitally, or what they're thinking about with you, with regards to you and your brand or your organization, so that can be shared, and there's some bi-directional dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like they say, for every action, there's a equal reaction, right? Because they're engaging with a piece of content, they're going to maybe that's going to drive them to your website, or for every data point that somebody ingests, it's going to lead to them taking some sort of action on more content of yours on your website, on some piece of collateral, to have a conversation with somebody for word of mouth. And you want to, as effectively as you possibly can, try to gather what those behaviors and activities are, so that you can start to draw a thread through what those customer journeys look like. Because oftentimes you can find some parallels between successful customer journeys that in essence end in a win for your organization, and you can start to see commonalities between what those different data touches and then the resulting activities were, to start to better understand those behaviors.
No, all true points here. So a couple of thoughts just for people as to how this starts to take shape and some things to consider. I know obviously everyone's in a spot where they're wanting to save time, and frankly, especially if you look at circumstances in the last 2 months, if staffing changes need to be made, and one of the things that I think could potentially come up in a lot of organizations, first off, is, well, maybe we make some augmentation here to our staffing, and maybe our social presence takes a hit as a result if it's not in a structured, automated way, where you can manage that with a really light touch. I think, looking at the stats on the right hand side there, my eye goes to the 42% increase in forecast accuracy. That's a big one right now. I mean, if you had line of sight to say, well, yeah, things are rough here in the month of April for us, but we know we've got, with a high degree of certainty, this is what's forthcoming, then maybe the next 4 months don't look so bad for us in terms of the COVID-19 situations we're looking at. But that's kind of bottom of the list of items here. But thinking on some of those other pieces, I just can't say it enough. Automation and making sure things are relevant are kind of important. Anything you want to add, Brad?
No, I think you summed it up really well. I would say, doing more with less is what everybody's trying to do right now. Kind of tightening our belts, trying to get through this storm that we're all seeing together. And when you can do more with less, it's going to feel really good right now. So automation is definitely key.
Yeah. So, whole concept here of employee advocacy, I don't even know if this is something that really resonates with people, but I think tapping into your own people and getting people that are proud to be advocates of your organization, your mission, vision, and values, and what it is you're doing. Um, it only speaks well for your company and ability to recruit and staff. But also, it's a great outward facing demand generation mechanism. And as I to go back to what I was saying earlier around what's old is new again. Well, how about word of mouth to some extent? I know it doesn't really show up quite as much as people think. But if you have a strong employee advocacy approach, I think there's some things to be gained in that regard. Brad, what are you guys seeing from the social horsepower side on this?
Yeah, I would agree with the word of mouth. We get a lot of word of mouth business, which is fantastic. And we always try to recognize that when and where we can. The hard part about it, and I think why it goes undervalued oftentimes in today's world, is it's really hard to track. It's hard to show an ROI data point for word of mouth, right? But still, that said, I think it's one of the most important aspects of of a go-to-market strategy, right? If you can get people that really like what you do and like your organization, to get them talking about it is really important. And the neat part about employee advocacy, when it's done right, is you can invite those people that feel excited about you and share a sense of the mission that you've set out to accomplish. You can have them participate in your company's advocacy programs, even if they're not an employee of the company. So it's nice that there's people out there talking about you and referring you to friends and so on and so forth. But to kind of systematize that and actually make it part of your campaigns can be a really valuable way to take advantage of that. And then, of course, to be able to put some parameters around it from an analytical perspective as well.
Yeah, so a couple quick thoughts on that, or tips or ideas to throw out just around the analytical perspective. I think a lot of times we certainly notice this. You may have someone who reaches out to you or interacts with you via the web or through a social channel, but what drove them there in the first place is maybe a better question to ask. And whether that's something you start to automate in your front end data capture, or you're starting to work with your staff to get them to ask those types of questions of people. But quite often there's maybe it's a 6 degrees of separation Kevin Bacon type of thing, but maybe somewhere along the line someone's pointed them in your direction for whatever reason. And to think about that from an employee point of view, I think there's certainly ability or capabilities to even gamify that and or tie it back to employee compensation. I'm a big believer that compensation drives behavior to some extent. It doesn't necessarily need to be monetary in nature, but if people are incented and recognized, and there's some positive incentives for them to be a brand advocate, not in a pushy or disingenuous type of way, I think you might see some good results. So just some things to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only for the awareness, the education, the ultimately sale of your products and services, but also in talent acquisition and talent retention as well. So we all have probably seen stats around the most effective employees, the ones that have the longest tenure, the ones that report the most kind of highest levels of satisfaction with the job, are normally referred to the organization by people that already worked there. And so that's another example of word of mouth and a tool that you can put in the hands of your advocates to attract and retain talent.
Well, with that said, Brad, let's dig a bit deeper into the social horsepower platform. Walk us through this. Tell us where people can get started, what they should know, and where they can go next.
Yeah, absolutely, happy to. So I will run through these bullet points real quickly, and then Luke, if I think I probably already have the capability, but if I can share my screen, I'll actually show everybody what this looks like on the inside, which I think is always interesting to see. So, obviously social horsepower is a social marketing and social selling employee advocacy tool. We help you schedule and manage all of the social content and its distribution out to various platforms. The goal, of course, is to engage audiences that are owned by your employees, your ambassadors, your partners, whomever you have invited to and brought in on this advocacy program so that you can extend your reach to those audiences and effectively communicate them with on-brand approved company content. We'll take a look, obviously, when we jump in on how you get that stuff going, but I like to call it first party, second party, third party content. And so we'll show you how you can leverage all of that stuff. One of the main benefits, not only from the organization, but from the users that participate, is the brand that they can build for themselves. And oftentimes they can do this by not really having to input much of their own time and energy, which is one of the major value propositions that our product offers the employees of our customers, is that they can pretty much, adopt the technology, get back to their day job, so to speak, and still retain a lot of the benefit of the product. And it just makes the company, and the employees look great to amplify the brand and the content that makes sense for their marketing campaigns, for their sales promotions, and so on. And then, of course, there's feedback loop built in there for analytical perspectives. And that last data point in the Dynamics integrations, that's, of course, why we're here and why we love our friends like Luke. But the ability to leverage this data within existing processes and kind of get our customers what they need, where they're already used to living their lives, I think is a really, really important aspect of our platform and the integrations that we've been able to build out. So anything you want to add there, Luke? If not,
well, just on that last point, I mean, for us, our focus is always on, like I said, the dynamic side and kind of two aspects of things enter into our business systems as a company, and then what happens next. So just being able to have people come to the records and information, and people coming into the system from the front end with that much more intelligence or proverbial meat on the bone is awesome. But then also being able to tie that back to what I'll just classify as the life cycle of a company or people, where we can get a really clean, consolidated view of where they're hanging out online and what they're doing, and really then start to data mine that for developing our own products and developing our own services and whatever else it is to optimize your operations and drive your business to the next level. So that's really where this is. It's like somewhat like pouring a can of gas on the fire in a good way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And well, I just stole my thunder for the next slide here for the most part. Anything you want to add there, Brad?
No, well said.
Well, let's get into it. I'll start driving us through social horsepower. I'll stop sharing my screen.
So I have just asked to share my screen with you guys. So give me a heads up, Luke, when you are looking at social horsepower.
Yes, we are.
Okay, perfect. So what I really want to focus on here is obviously the employee advocacy, the social content distribution, and social selling aspect of the platform. And what I want to do is kind of take you through two different stages of how an organization could potentially leverage the platform. The first is going to be the easiest and quickest hands-free setup for an employee advocacy and social selling use. That's going to be for folks that have really, really lean teams, don't necessarily have the resources to invest in getting really nitty gritty into aligning the content with, marketing campaigns on an individual basis or sales promotional campaigns and things like that. But just what's the easiest and quickest way to get to all of your teams being social? And then we'll kind of lead from that into a little bit more involved of a use case and some of the feature functionality that I believe makes this a really exciting platform and kind of separates it from other offerings that people might be aware of when they think about the quote unquote employee advocacy platforms that are available. So what you're looking at right now is the content bucket, and this has all of the active content that is available to your program users. So you might catch me using the word employee here when I talk about users of the program, which is really a misnomer. Anybody who you invite to this program could participate in your brand ambassadorship or employee advocacy program. They don't need to be employees. So hopefully I will appropriately use that term, users or program users. But this is the content that's available to them. And I'm not going to jump into all of the nitty gritty stuff in this. But of course, things like delegated access can be set up here. So if you have different groups, an executive may not see the same thing that a salesperson does. But we can touch on that if anybody has follow-up questions or wants to engage with BTAC or Social HP. Obviously, after this, we can get into some of the details. But this is my content screen. It is very easy to automate the aggregation of your shareable content. And I want to show you how quickly this can be done, because the point is, do more with less and automate your process workflow so that you don't have to do this. It's kind of a set it and forget it. So here you see a couple of feeds that make sense for our lab environment at Social HP. We have our own company blogs. We have other blogs that make sense for us. A lot of sales and marketing and social marketing type of content in here. It's really, really easy to add any feed that you would want to plug into the system. So I mentioned first party, second party, and third party content. And first party is anything that you as an organization are creating. If it's out there on your social platforms already, you obviously sign in with your credentials. You can pull the content from those social platforms into Social HP. Obviously going to be a very important aspect of your social marketing and social selling content strategy. Beyond that, RSS feeds, any RSS feed that you guys have, obviously the content that you are creating within your organization in Adobe Creative Design or any sort of creative studio, or your blog content, your newsletter content, anything like that, get the RSS feed from that stuff, pop it in here. Really easy to get all of your first party content into the system, and even second party content, which would be business partners. So if I want to leverage some great content that Luke has created, we're partners, I call him up, I say, hey, Luke, get me that RSS feed from that blog. I love that blog. I want to have it into my content. Great. He throws me the RSS feed. I dump it in here. We're going to pull that feed in an automated fashion. So once I've set it up once, it never needs to be looked at again. So we have that set it and forget it feature for automated content aggregation. The third party content is comes to you by way of a Google keyword search. So you may not have a very comprehensive content creation process right now. You're kind of looking at what content makes sense for you. Where can you start to leverage content that already exists, because nobody has time and energy in creating content at the moment. What you can do is you can set up keywords or phrases in this Google keyword search. And what Google does, of course, is cast that net out there and drags in all of the content that trips on your keyword. So you can put your industry in there, any topic that makes sense, competitors, things like that you might want to aggregate content for. And all of this will flow into what we were just looking at, which is your content bucket. So in a matter of a couple of minutes, you have automated your content aggregation. Everything is built for you in bite-sized shareable posts, which are represented by these content tiles here, and can very easily be shared by your users to distribute that content out to their social platforms. So that is kind of the easiest, quickest way to get all of your teams social in seconds. You set up those feeds, they're going to pull on a regular basis. This is always fresh, approved company content. So the users don't have to worry about, if I share this, is it going to look bad? Does it have the right, wording? Is it against compliance or regulation concerns? They know and they trust that anything that's in here in the active bucket has been either created by the organization or vetted and approved by the organization. And you'd be really surprised at how often we hear from users, from employees, that, well, the reason I don't share is I'm worried about what I might share and what it might do to the company from a negative impact. This is a great way to erase those fears and say, hey, anything in here, have at it. It's going to be a great brand value add to the organization. So again, Simple in seconds, easiest way, get your content in here, invite all of your users, which can be done really, really easily. It's basically an email box. So you set up and the easiest way to do this is email aliases, right? So if you've got a sales team and a marketing team and an executive team and they've got sales at, marketing at, so on and so forth, you can knock out a bunch of users by using email aliases, but this is just an email box. You can do individuals. And again, in line with onboarding users into your program that are not employees of your organization, any of your partner emails, any individual who you know is going to be a great word of mouth ambassador for you, so to speak, can be invited to the program and they can join as well. So really easy to get your team in here, and then they can go ahead and they can bang out sharing content. So that's kind of the first and easiest, quickest use case for just simply getting people social. Now, where I feel like the real value of social horsepower starts to come into play is for the ability to kind of dig a little bit deeper and understand a lot of the things that we've talked about, which is having a social presence isn't necessarily enough, but having the right social presence at the right time, making it relevant is very, very important. Making it in line with your marketing goals, with your sales promotions. That's the nuances of these programs, and the nuances of when and where and how you share is very, very important to the efficacy of these programs. So this, again, quickest, easiest way to get people sharing, very valuable to organizations in a certain stage. But what is most important to the lion's share of our customer base and the future of social selling is to be able to execute on those nuances. And what makes that possible here in the Social HP platform is the calendar feature. And the calendar feature is just a visual representation of what your content distribution looks like. We have everything in the past, so we can kind of wrap our head around what our strategy looks like. And then we have today here, which is just slightly discolored, so it's easy visually to see. And I can look at what's going on as far as what's scheduled for me into the future. So I have a really one single page holistic view of my social marketing campaign. And me in a sales capacity, I could start to look at what of this content is in line with a sales promotion, and I could say, okay, this piece of content is going to be really nice going out on that day. So it's a simple drag and drop. It pops open with a way for me to edit, when on this day, for example, this post goes out, or any sort of editing of this content that I might want to make as an individual user. Of course, you can lock the content down. So if you do have posts or content that are, regulatory issues or compliance issues, you can lock the content so that this editing cannot take place. But most content is editable, so people can kind of put their own flair, their own spice on it, tailor it to a certain region or anything like that if they really want to, and then go ahead and schedule that post to go out on that day. So really effective way for me to understand and execute this campaign for myself. Now, to make it even more valuable, what we've done is administrators, not normal users like we just saw, but administrators actually have access to everybody in the program and their calendar. So Alan is my business partner. He's a co-founder at Social HP. He's really, really busy. He's running around coding a lot of this stuff. He's working on partnerships for the organization. He's traveling around, not so much today, but usually. And he's really busy, right? So if he forgets to get social and he forgets to share content, I can help him out a little bit. So I can take a look at what his campaign looks like and what he's up to, and I can say, hey, that piece of content here is going to be really great for Alan to go out on the 26th. I'm just going to help him out a little bit, and I'm going to schedule that post for him. So I go, okay, great. That's going to go out on Alan's calendar. So you can see nothing else has to be done. That piece of content is going to be published out to Alan's social networks, and we're going to get the benefit of an organization from reaching those audiences. Alan's also going to get the benefit of not having to have put any work or energy into sharing that piece of content, but it's going to improve his brand and his thought leadership position in the industry on LinkedIn. And so some of you folks that are potentially familiar with employee advocacy campaigns, every once in a while there's a little bit of pushback and some heartburn from users saying, hey, you guys as a company, for example, are leveraging my network to promote our products and our content. And, really most of the time I'm on board with that type of stuff and here for the company. But, hey, what's in it for me type of a thing. You gotta always consider that side of it. And what's in it for Alan and employees is that they look like rock stars on LinkedIn and on other social platforms. And that is a individual brand that they get to maintain and carry with them for the rest of their careers, right? So you're really doing them a very solid value by improving and bolstering their individual brand on mainly LinkedIn from that perspective, but other social platforms.
So Brad, I know getting a summary digest every day, I don't know, maybe I'm a lot like about a lot of others, but essentially starting your day, starting to clean out the inbox of email. Do you tackle social? Do you try and stay out of the Instagram rabbit hole of spending too much time there? But I personally find a lot of value in just that summary digest of pre-vetted content that 3 clicks later, I've already shared that out across any social channels. What kind of flexibility is there in that? Can I get that daily as content is posted? Do I have ability to regulate the frequency of that?
Absolutely. So what you can do is you can set up the digests from the system so that they can go out daily, weekly, monthly, however you want to set up your cadence with your users. And you can pull fresh content. There's a fresh content digest, right? So kind of we'll hand pick some of the newest content on the platform, and we'll send it out to the employees. They'll get it by way of email and or the mobile app, and it will simply be a great reminder for them of a couple things. Number one, what's the latest and greatest company content for employee engagement and employee understanding, right, of what's going on. And then also, hey, it's really easy to share this. Go ahead and share the content. And then you can have top performing digest as well. So the content that has performed best out in the wild has gotten the most clicks and that type of stuff. That's the things that you would be most excited about employees sharing. That digest can go out and just as a reminder for employees to share content. And so that's all capable through the platform. But it brings me to another point. So it's a great question on how you can get people like Alan to share content at scale, right? So this is really effective. A team leader or an administrator going into individual calendars and helping individuals out with sharing content is really effective for executive communications when you kind of really need to be myopic about what's happening exactly. But to do this at scale would be time consuming. How many calendars can you get to before you start going crazy if you got thousands of users, right? So we developed what we call the campaign scheduler, which allows me in literally a matter of a minute and a couple of clicks to schedule a piece of content across the entire user base. So this piece of content is a great piece of content to be published out for a marketing campaign or a sales promotion that we have. I want every single person in the organization to share this content or a subset of groups that I've built potentially, just my sales team for a sales promotion. But in the broadest perspective, everybody on the platform here is going to share this piece of content. I want this to happen between today and the 27th. So I want it to happen over the next week. And I'm going to schedule this to go out on everybody's behalf. So a couple interesting things are happening here. Obviously, number one, we've just designed a portion of this marketing campaign in a matter of 30 seconds or so for every single person in the organization. The other thing is this tool is designed to make this share look very organic. So one of the problems with bulk sharing is it can look, in essence, like a spam share or something close to like a spam email, right? So what you'll notice here, if I open up a piece of content, the system is capable of maintaining multiple images and messages for the same payload, in essence. So the article, the content is the same, but there's going to be multiple messages here. So message 2, message 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, however you think you might need. And same with images. I can start to upload multiple images. The beauty of this content spinner is that it will take those multiple images and multiple messages when I jump into the campaign scheduler, and it will understand that there's multiple users here that are going to share this in that time window, and there's multiple messages, multiple images. So it is going to intelligently place combinations of that content so that it looks like a very, very organic share over that time period. So you could even cut this window down to like an hour or 2 hours, and it's still going to look like an organic sharing instance. And that is a really effective way to share content at mass within your user base. Okay, so great question there. For those of you that are wondering, how do I maintain some control over my networks? That's always going to be a question that users get, right? I'm particular about my LinkedIn brand. I really want to make sure that I know what's going out. I love the idea that my team lead is going to be able to help me by accessing my calendar, sharing content for me, or using the campaign scheduler to get that content out on my behalf. But I just have a little bit of heartburn about what that might do to my personal brand. And so if we look here in our user base, we'll see a couple of people that have locked calendars, right? So if there's somebody with a locked calendar, it does not mean that you can't schedule content for them. As an administrator, you're still going to be able to suggest content on this person's calendar. They're just going to have to approve the distribution before it actually sends. So same as we saw with the email digest from the system, they're going to get an email notification and or an app notification on their mobile app, their Social HP mobile app. And it will say, hey, Isabel, pretty pleased with Sugar on Top. Jump into the app, click this, email button. There's an approve or deny button right in here. So it's a one-click effort for this user. So they get the best of both worlds, right? They get the kind of structure and guidance and assistance from this marketing professional that runs the program, but they also have that control of their own platforms and their own brand, so that they're not worried about what might be shared on a company level that they're not aware of. So we've got a really, really great way to make sure that both the autopilot users and the locked calendar users can get the most out of the system and still feel safe and sound, so to speak. So that's that's kind of the quick and dirty, the nickel tour. Luke, if there's anything that you feel like I could add or show here that would be valuable at the moment, I'm happy to do so. But for those of you again that are familiar with employee advocacy, I'll end on this note, which is the ability for a single administrator or various team leaders to be able to access the networks and post content on behalf of employees is really, really valuable when you think about this from a retention perspective. One of the really serious Achilles heels, so to speak, of employee advocacy tools is you have to over and over and over again persuade your users to come into the system and share content on their own. This platform supports that, but it doesn't rely on that, because there's two issues with that. Number one, they simply don't do it over time. They might do it while it's a pretty new, shiny new toy, but they're not going to do it month after month, year over year. So your retention drops off massively and you lose the value of those networks and those employees. The other thing is back to, what does my social presence actually look like? Does it really help me that much if my user comes in here once a month and shares every piece of content at the same time? It almost backfires, right? It's almost a negative on the company brand and the company awareness. And so we want to be sure that that we retain that retention and also have a really intelligent way of making sure we're not just vomiting content on social platforms, because that can backfire.
Yeah. No, I think that, Brad, that does a a tremendous service to some of the capabilities that are out there, and just giving us a view into how easy it is to get started with some of this stuff. Um, I'll open it up here if we have any questions, and appreciate you taking us through this. And hopefully, people can find a way to work this into their overall strategy, as people are just shifting gears, shifting mindsets. I know it's not always the easiest to change old habits, and they die hard, but this is something that I think is going to become commonplace in the future for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will, I'll just make another plug here, because if you like what you see here, we didn't get into some of the really kind of setup details, which I think is not the place for a webinar like this, obviously, but we could get into, with anybody who's interested, some of the details of how you actually set this up and get the most out of it. We have some features that weren't highlighted, like the newsletter, the smart links. And for those that are wondering, if you go to socialhp.com, our website, you can find our pricing page. It's the only 100% transparent pricing in the industry. So go there, check out pricing. If you have questions, obviously you can let Luke or I know, and we're happy to have a broader conversation around this stuff.
As far as a question is concerned, here's one that's coming in, or maybe I'll kind of paraphrase, perhaps around just the tracking of visitors on the site, and as part of the forum strategy, getting people to opt in through some content. Do we have the ability to track visitors to our website? We want to start capturing leads that come in from our website more effectively.
Yes, great question. And the answer is yes. We do have multiple ways to identify leads. So Luke, you mentioned lead capture and lead capture forms. There's a way to basically position a squeeze page, a lead capture form, with an audience member who's basically raising their hand and telling you at that moment that they're interested in this topic. So the way that it works is you'd identify the topic and the content that makes sense, and then you'd marry the appropriate piece of collateral with that link. So as you distribute that link out to LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and all the social networks, when it goes out there, it is basically carrying a squeeze page with a piece of collateral for it. So let's say, to make the hypothetical easy, you're posting a piece of content on how marketing technology has gotten bloated price tags, and there should be a more cost-effective way to automate marketing. And so what you do, because you now can assume that anybody that clicks on that link, on that content, is interested in reducing their cost from a marketing perspective. So when they click on that link from LinkedIn or anywhere that they might be engaging with it, instead of sending them directly to that article, which will happen, of course, you hit them with a quick squeeze page that will time out if they do nothing in a customized set. It's 8 seconds by default, but you could change that. And it positions them your pricing sheet, let's say, because this was kind of a pricing focused topic. You can say, hey, interested in reducing your cost of your marketing tech stack, download our pricing page and see how much money you could save. So if they take you up on downloading that pricing page in that squeeze page experience, what you're going to ask for is their name and email address or phone number, or whatever you want to ask them for. There's various options in the lead form, and they're going to put in their email address and phone number, and you can send them the pricing page. But then you also get their contact information sent into your CRM so that your sales team can follow up on it. And not only do they get the phone number and the email, for example, so that they can reach out, but they're going to get the contextual information that comes with that lead. They're going to know that they clicked on the content. They're going to know they downloaded the pricing page, and they're going to know that they engaged with the link on LinkedIn, for example. So it gives them a nice little warm conversation that they can have with the lead prospect.
Awesome. Well, I think that's really, again, appreciate you taking us through this afternoon, Brad. If there's some additional information anybody is after, there's a few good links here. We'll distribute the deck here to anyone who wants to dig further into some of this content. And really, again, just appreciate everyone taking the time out of their day, and hopefully everyone's staying sane and getting outside now that it's a little bit nicer as the spring is upon us here, and enjoying the outdoors. So thanks, and have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks so much, guys.